Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's edition of the UBV Presents the Black Notes. I'm Leon Mallet with my two organizers in arms, Mr. Ivory Hodges and Mr. Matt Clayton. Today's notes we are going to be discussing is tariffs. There has been a lot of discussion regarding tariffs the Trump administration has talked about putting in place. And our goal here is to educate you on what tariffs are and how they can potentially impact you. So we want to just first start off by explaining what exactly a tariff is and how they work. Can you go ahead and break that down for us, Matt?
Yeah, so all a tariff is a tax on any import that another country, gets to your country. So pretty much a tax on any kind of goods they sell to your country. So the number one goal with a tariff is to tax these foreign products or goods so much that it makes people in that country buy the domestic product. So instead of buying, steel from this place or that place, the goal is to add so much taxes, aka tariffs, on there that it makes the domestic product, more desirable. Now that sounds good and it sounds great, but I think at the end of the day, what you start to see with tariffs right now, it just becomes a battle of political figures and it becomes a battle of billionaires. So just to kind of just make it simple, that's what tariffs typically are used for. But right now, it's almost like a battle with the billionaires, battle with the political leaders, and it's kind of morphing into something else. You want to add to that, Ivory? Because I know this kind of gets into. I know you talk a lot about how it impacts everyday people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what does this mean for the everyday black person? You work a job, you paying your bills, you just going through the life, and you seeing like these words, tariffs, 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 pop up on your screen or your timeline or whatever. What does that mean for you? I'll say this: it means a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, just I always tell people and my clients, I always get them to focus on what they can control. We can't control all the whole global economy, but you can control how much you spend. You can't control how much you invest, how much you save, how much when you pay down your debt loads. I always tell people to focus on what you can control. So even the whole terrorist conversation we're having, it's always still good to also focus on your personal financial situation, making sure you are in a good place, that you have savings, you have adequate savings, you're paying down your credit card debt, you're investing into your retirement account, and that alone will kind of keep you ahead of the game in that way.
Absolutely. So, from my perspective, tariffs are kind of a double-edged sword, where on one hand, obviously, you have a country who can potentially be in control of taxing a product or service that's coming in. And what that does is that gives them a little bit of, I guess you could say, of an upper hand on the other country as far as, their ability to bring in products, which at the end of the day, limiting somebody's ability to bring in products is lowering their revenue. And obviously, the lower your revenue, the less power that you're going to be able to, exert. So from that perspective, as far as flexing your power, I get that. But what people got to look at also on the other end is that it's going to put people in a position to where uh, you're going to potentially take the hit for this. At the end of the day, companies are in business to make money. Profit is the number one goal for all businesses that go on. So if this company is getting charged extra, to be able to bring in this product that they need to do their production, they're not just going to eat that and say, okay, well, we'll just take less profit. They're going to pass that on to the consumer ultimately, which means your prices are going to are going to rise as far as being the end buyer. So I think it's a fine edged sword where I get where you want to try to keep a country at bay to kind of flex your power. But at the end of the day, if it's overpower, if you flex too much, you may potentially, let's say pop a blood vessel in your arm flexing and end up hurting yourself because you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. And that's just not a viable situation to be in. So I think it's a fine balance that you have to have between making sure that you are taxing people to make sure that they're at bay, but also not to the point where you're doing it at the detriment ultimately of your citizens as well.
Yeah, and I add this too because a lot of people ask how would this like we talk about how would it impact everyday Americans, how would it impact Black Americans, and I will say this too, to kind of sum it up. Like in my opinion, you can create the tariffs, you can raise prices. It doesn't mean a fucking blip if you're not at the same time increasing national wages. It doesn't fucking matter. That's what people got to get out. People got to understand that. Like, you can tax all these different countries, you can put tariffs on them, but if there's no domestic plan how to increase people's wages on a day to day, it's gonna fucking drown, man. You're gonna create these tariffs, even if they're short term. Prices are gonna go high. The prices are gonna be passed to them directly, and there's no national conversation about how to increase people's salary, how to increase people's wages. So it just doesn't work. Tariffs, in my opinion, can be good. The way we've been going about it, like even with the tariffs on other countries, that's good if there is also a movement within the country to increase domestic productivity and increase domestic wages. But that's not happening. Those things have to happen simultaneously. So at the end of the day, man, you just throwing some motherfucking tariffs on some shit, fucking some people, fucking some people's price, fucking up people's budgets. That's what's gonna happen. What happens with these tariffs? You fucking up people's budgets. You know what I'm saying? And because billionaires are fighting with each other, they're gonna fuck it up. It's gonna work itself out over time, and you still sitting there and shit happen. I know I'm talking real blunt, but that's really what's gonna happen. Prices gonna go up, and then the crazy part is not even when prices go up; it's the anticipation. Oh, we think prices may go up, so we're gonna cut here. All this other crazy shit. And excuse my language, but I'm just trying to say, at the end of the day, everyday people get fucked over with this type of stuff. And at the same time, their wages aren't going up, but prices are going up. It's crazy. Sorry, I know
Yeah.
it's kind of long winded, but that's just my thought.
No, I understand where you're coming from, Matt. And there's two potential ways a country who's, let's say, getting hit with tariffs can react to this. They can say, okay, well, we're only going to spend a specific amount of money as far as importing on these products. So what that does is, if they're going to limit their amount of products that they're doing because they have to meet these specific levels of overall tariffs that they're going to do, that means that those products are not necessarily going to be coming over here. And let's just say, for instance, it's steel or windows or something that they're
Yeah.
importing over for production with cars. If they're limiting the amount that they're coming over, that's going to affect jobs here in America because these companies are not going to be able to produce as much as they need to before, which potentially can lead to layoffs. So when you're saying, okay, well, we're going to increase these tariffs, this country may say, okay, well, we're not going to pay more than a specific amount each year, meaning we're going to limit the amount of exports that we're going to do. That potentially can affect, our domestic production, which at the end of the day is going to potentially cost some people their jobs. Now, keeping into the point to where you said, where if they do increase it and say, okay, well, we still want to, keep the same capacity of exports that we're doing that. Obviously, we're just going to have to obviously pay more to do that. Well, again, those prices are going to get pushed down to the consumer at the end of the day. And if this pushed down to the consumer, the wages have to go up in order to be able to take on those increasing wages. And if they're not, then we're going to be digging ourselves an even deeper hole because of the fact that they're not going to be able to take or be able to afford these increased prices from the exports. Because at the end of the day, companies are in business for profit. And
Mm.
if they're getting higher expenses, they're not going to say, okay, well, we're just going to keep things, the same, and just, charge the same prices. That's not how this game goes. Ultimately, they're going to say, okay, well, we got charged an extra $3 on this. We're going to maybe have to bump our price up now to $4 to compensate for it. And it's always going to come back down on the in-buying consumer who's going to have to take this on. And again, as you stated, Matt, if we're not keeping up with the wages, it's only putting us in a deeper hole as far as affordability on these products because if our wages aren't increases and the prices are, that's where that circle goes where we're just going to be spinning our circles and ultimately leads to things like poverty where we're kind of running our wheels with where we can't afford to get out of these ditches that we're in ultimately.
Um, y'all giving me a master class on tariffs. I'll say this though, like real talk. So walk me through it. So I'm learning from YouTube. So let's say I'm Mexico or China or let's say Canada, whatever, and I have cherries. Let's just make a real scenario. I have cherries. I sell cherries. I'm from Mexico. I
Well,
sell
avocados,
cherries.
avocados from
Or
Mexico.
avocados, you know what I'm saying?
Mexico,
Hey, hey,
you
Mexican
seen that commercial?
avocados, bro.
You seen that commercial, bro?
Hey,
Yeah,
hey, with some avocado toast, that's
yeah,
my
yeah.
thing. That's my jam, bro. I take the cherries too. But let's just say that. Let's say avocados, for example. All right, so I got avocados. They're going to charge me to import those in there. They're going to put a tax when I bring those into the store. So that means the end consumer, I'm at Target, I'm going to pay an extra couple dollars for my avocados, right? Is that what y'all
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
You
Because
know,
at the end of the day, companies have to keep their profit lines, and they're either going to have to raise prices or they're going to have to cut expenses somewhere else. And usually, when it comes to companies, the number one expense that most companies has is employee wages. So if they just say, okay, well, we're not going to raise our prices, we're going to have to cut somewhere else to make up for that. First thing that's going to go are the employees. That's just the
yeah.
natural realm of business because employee wages are the largest expense for 99% of the businesses out
But I say this too. I think I hear what you're saying, Leon. Don't take this the wrong way. I think people hear that narrative all the time, and they say, "Oh, that's the rationale." I think it's BS. The reason I sit here and say that is like, let's say GM. Yeah, I use Stellantis, right? When they got bought out, they bought out Chrysler. They laid off all those employees, right? They had record profits, which they manipulate their profits. They had record profits selling the Hellcat. You know what I'm saying? That you from the West Coast. You from the West Coast where people out there bipping out in Oakland, stealing the cars, and so, all that stuff they do out there in Oakland. You
there.
know what
Those
I'm saying?
ride
They
the
do it here
whip.
in Detroit. Yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, they do all that. They lay off all these people. Then they complain that car sales are going down. Why not create fucking more incentives for people to buy the fucking cars that already work for you? So the point that I'm making is that people think that that's the logical decision. Oh man, companies have to increase their prices. No, back in the 50s, companies used to increase production. They used to find new ways to make revenue. They stopped. I think a lot of companies have stopped doing that now. So I think that people hear that a lot. That seems like the logical decision, but it's just like people don't want to innovate. They don't want to invest in the workforce. And I think people are tired of it. People hear it all the damn time. Like they hear that stuff all the time. Oh, well, companies got to cut costs because their costs are blah, 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 blah. Man, come on. I think sometimes it's just, I think at this is the point in time where you really have to invest in your workforce. And the country just hasn't done it. They're not doing it. They're not doing it. This is a pivotal time. And the only country that has put any effort into creating a strong internal workforce and protecting it is any kind of way has been China, to be honest. We've tried to create a domestic workforce. I mean, there's a lot of issues in China, but other places have sold a lot of people out. For globalism, there's nothing wrong with globalism. Don't get me wrong, but it has allowed some companies to go and you just go all across the country and just keep getting cheaper, cheaper, cheaper labor. Like we start to see right now, even with services, it used to be, okay, we're gonna cut manufacturing and ship it out the country. They're cutting engineers and shipping the engineering jobs out the country, right? That's where you start getting to these H1 visas and all that and stuff. It goes into that. So I think what's happening at the end of the day with these tariffs, I said it's a battle with the billionaires. People are trying to figure out how to make a little bit more money. People are peacocking, playing these political back and forth games that they've been playing for a very long time. And at the end of the day, they're telling people tariffs are good for the country without actually doing the back end work to make sure that the workforce is being increased and then the money is being flown in. And so it's gonna be a hard world. And like to Ivy's point, he's absolutely right. Make sure your ducks are in a row. I say skill up where you can, bundle up because it might be a little tough time for a few months. That's just my take. I know it sounds harsh, but people aren't being honest with people. People are not being honest about what these tariffs are. This is not about creating a better domestic product and all that. It's just billionaire games and political games. So I'm sorry, y'all. Know I went on a tangent, but that's really my biggest pet peeve with these tariffs.
Bundle up. It's gonna be a cold, cold
Cold
economy
winter,
out there.
cold
Yeah, well,
economy,
okay.
man.
Let me just kind of step in real quick, just to make sure that we're on the same page. I'm not necessarily saying these tariffs are good or bad. And when you say logical, what I'm speaking of is just business. At the end of the day, people are in business for profits. Now, the way they do it and go about it, it's up to you to decide whether or not that's the right way or not. But at the end of the day, if your expenses go up and you're in business, your goal is to make profit. And there's two ways to cut profit or to make profit when you have expenses go up. The number one is to cut expenses somewhere else. And the number one expense for any company is employee wages. Now, is that the right way to take it? I'm not going to say that necessarily is. That's just reality at the end of the day. Employee wages are the largest expense for most companies. And if a company gets increased expenses somewhere else, ultimately, the first thing that's going to typically go is going to be the employees. That's just how it
Mhm.
is. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. It just is what it is. So I just want to make sure that when I say that, it's not that I'm saying that I believe this is right or that I believe this is the way that you should do it. That just is what it is with any business at the end of the day. Businesses are in production to make a profit, and they can make a profit either by increasing their prices or cutting expenses. There's no really other way to be able to increase to make profit. And that's just how companies approach. And that's not even, I'm not even talking about dealing with tariffs here with them. This is just business in general. If the bread person down the street who is, providing bread for McDonald's, if they increase their prices, McDonald's is going to increase their prices too. It just is what it is. And that has nothing to do with somebody sending bread from Italy or somewhere. This is just the realm of business. So just from my standpoint, I just want to make sure that it's not that I'm condoning these actions that are being taken. That's just how business is in general. And that's kind of what I was saying, how these things go about. Now, I do agree with you, Matt, that people need to learn how to be innovative as far as being able to still, withstand and hold their workforce and still continue to produce. But unfortunately, a lot of companies these days are just lazy and they're not looking at doing that. And they're looking to take the easy way out. And that's why they are going overseas and trying to, outship a lot of these jobs and things of that nature, which is a whole nother story into itself. But ultimately, like I said, I just want to make sure that from my standpoint, what I'm speaking about is just business in general, not necessarily tariffs. It's just how that goes with business in general.
Yeah, and let me stick up for the consumer because I'm a consumer advocate. All of us are consumer advocates, but I really want to talk about that part, the consumer, because what we see here is obviously prices are going up, right? We just talked about that, all three of us talking about that now. But if you are a single mom, or maybe you're a person, you got a lot of student loan debt and you're already struggling to make ends meet and you got credit card debt, this is my message to you. Like you might have to just tighten that belt up a little bit because, like to Matt's point and to Leon's point, like corporations are going to do what they want to do, and the business, just the fact that their business have to raise prices in certain cases, you got to do is you still got to protect yourself. We still got to protect ourselves, and how we protect ourselves is keeping our costs down as much as possible. So that might means we can't go to brunch every weekend. Right? That might mean we may have to make some cuts on some subscriptions. We may have to skill up and get additional skills. We may have to get a side hustle. We may have to even, make some cuts in terms of some purchases. Maybe you were going to buy a car this year. Maybe you wait to 2026. So there's a lot of things that we can do just to take some pressure off ourselves. So that's the point I want to make in terms of for the consumers.
So what you're saying is sacrifice.
Well, you just gotta tighten that belt. You gotta tighten that belt.
No, it is. I don't know.
I say one little part with that too, because I had a client this week. I had a client, and she was making $150,000, $160,000, and then she got cut in half because her hours got cut in half. Automation, AI, all that stuff. So she was actually a tech worker. So she worked in tech, and she got cut down from making $150,000 to half of that. So, but her lifestyle didn't cut back. She still was doing everything like it was normal, like that 150 was still there, and she was using credit cards to foot the bill. But 6 months of doing that, that would devastate your financial situation. So I just think now is a really important time to really just kind of just see what your finances is looking like. But like I said, if you're going to buy a car this year, maybe put it off next year. If you're going to go on that Disney World trip, hey, I love Disney like the next person, but maybe you say not this year. So just small cuts that you can make adds up into a big savings because we're going down some dark times. I hate to say it, but we're going to a trade war. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about sacrificing, man, at the end of the day. There was a group that some of you guys may know called Bone Thugs and Harmony, and they had a song called Give Up. Yeah. And the chorus of the song says, there's always something you got to give up to get everything you want. And I believe right now we are in those times where you have to sacrifice some things. Is it fun? Mm-hmm. No. But you have to give up some temporary pleasure or go through some temporary pain for some long-term pleasure at the end of the day. And, like you said, it's time to tighten up because stuff's been real and getting even more real on a day-by-day basis. So definitely have to look at cuts and ways you guys can maybe push some things off that are a necessity in your life that you can live without, at least on a temporary basis.
Facts.
Want to add anything, Matt?
No, it kind of sums up everything, So,
That came hard, man.
I hope people get something out of it, though. But yeah,
Passion. That's good. I love it. That
I
passion,
know.
man. Yeah. So, all right, gentlemen. Well, we just like to thank you guys for taking the time out to watch our video today. Please make sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms to get real-time updates on our progression as we build towards the midterms and the 2028 presidential election. Also, please don't forget to take the survey so we can continue to work on putting together the Black Agenda 2028. This is an agenda of issues that affect the Black communities and us as Black Americans in the United States, which we will take to local and federal politicians in order to have them audition for our votes in future elections. Our vote is powerful, and we need to let these politicians on both sides know that we understand this and that we will have to show us ultimately that they deserve our votes moving forward. To take part in that survey, log on to www.blackagenda2028.com and complete the quick 2-minute survey and voice ultimately what matters most to you. Also, please make sure to share the link of the survey to as many people in the Black community as you can, so we can make sure that we put together an agenda that reflects the outlook of most of us. You will automatically be entered in a giveaway for the new iPhone 17, just for stating ultimately, what's most important to you. So the time for change is now, and we need all of us united to assure that that change happens. Thank you guys again for joining us. We are BA28, and we are out.
It's okay, everybody.